A huge Russian convoy moving toward Kyiv has stalled. Here's why. A 64-kilometer-long Russian military convoy heading toward Kyiv that has virtually stalled for over a week now sits about 15 miles out from the city, according to the Washington Post. Mechanical breakdown, congestion, and morale issues, plus food and fuel supplies running low, are cited by the BBC as contributing factors to the extremely slow progress. Additionally, one former commander of the UK Joint Forces Command told the BBC command and control issues such as faulty radio networks are likely to be causing bigger problems. The Associated Press, meanwhile, reports that Ukrainian resistance may also account for some of the slowdown, with one senior U.S. defense official saying Ukrainian troops have been targeting the convoy with ground fire, including shoulder-fire Javelin anti-tank missiles, and essentially creating roadblocks when vehicles at the front of the convoy are struck. Alternatively, though, Pentagon spokesman John Kirby has suggested that the vehicles, which he says are largely meant for resupply purposes, could be deliberately paused as the Russians regroup themselves. Cited by the Washington Post last week, the director of the Security and Defense Studies program at the Turkish think tank EDAM said the convoy's delay could be partially the result of Russia's attempt to move away from a failed plan to decapitate the Ukrainian government quickly. The Russian forces are instead now trying to transition to Soviet-type heavy firepower and armor-focused operations, he said. Going further, the former head of the British Army, General Lloyd Dannett, told the BBC this enormous column will encircle and lay siege to the capital, Kyiv, where the New Yorker reported last week that thousands of those residents still in the city are seeking shelter every night in its metro system. Regardless of those competing explanations for its elongated existence, the Post says that the convoy has become a lightning rod for public discussion around the war, inspiring armchair generals to discuss how to best fight against it. Any suggestion that Ukraine could simply dismantle it from the air have been widely dismissed, however. The Wall Street Journal reports that the Ukrainian Air Force is crediting its new Turkish-made drones with destroying a large number of Russian weapon systems with guided bombs, but Russian troops have been seen deploying anti-aircraft missiles effectively against such drones. Ukraine's armed forces seem to be destroying a lot of Russian tanks with the expensive shoulder-fired missile systems that the West has given to Ukraine. Here are the details. Reuters reports that U.S. President Joe Biden's recent gift to Ukraine of $350 million worth of U.S. weapons brings the total of U.S. assistance package to $1 billion over just the last year. The donation includes a large number of Javelin anti-tank weapons. The Javelin system has a day sight as well as an infrared sight for targeting armored vehicles at night. The missile's computer locks onto the target. A small charge blasts out of the tube before the powerful rocket engine ignites. Here, the folded fins pop out to steer the weapon to the target. The weapon can be fired directly at buildings, or the operator can set it to top attack mode, in which case the missile flies up to 150 meters before slamming down on a tank from above. Once it gets close to the target, the missile's first warhead detonates to activate the tank's reactive armor. After the reactive armor explodes, the main warhead detonates against the tank's thin top armor, where the shaped charge of the warhead punches a hole through the armor, causing the tank's ammunition to detonate. The Javelin is a fire-and-forget system that can destroy tanks up to 2 kilometers away. It can defeat armor that's up to 80 centimeters thick. The launcher can be reloaded, and each missile costs either $80,000 or $175,000, depending on who you ask. The Guardian reports that Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S. says Russia has started using thermobaric weapons to bomb Ukrainian cities. This comes in the wake of multiple social media posts showing TOS-1 thermobaric missile launchers entering Ukraine. The TOS-1 vehicle can fire 24 thermobaric missiles in 15 seconds, and each missile can destroy buildings within hundreds of meters of the detonation point. The missile can be fired up to 6 kilometers away. When it hits its target, an initial charge distributes an aerosol made up of very fine material, which could be anything from a carbon-based fuel to tiny metal particles. This highly flammable cloud is then ignited by a second charge. When the cloud erupts, it creates a massive shockwave, as well as a vacuum as it sucks up all surrounding oxygen. The blast wave can last for significantly longer than a conventional explosive and is capable of vaporizing human bodies. It is, however, designed to destroy defensive positions, which means it causes massive damage to city buildings, while also causing many human casualties. As military experts warn that Russia may be shifting tactics, increasingly using artillery and air bombardments to pulverize cities as they previously did in Chechnya and Syria, according to the Associated Press, Kyiv's metro is operating as a citywide bomb shelter. In the last week, Russia has bombarded Kyiv with missile strikes, with troops attempting to push into the city from the northwest, and the Kyiv TV tower hit by a projectile on March 1st. The New Yorker explains that the situation is seeing metro stations in Kyiv fill with as many as 15,000 civilians every night in search of safety. The system of 52 metro stations is home to famous historic features dating back to the Soviet era. Its Arsenal station is the deepest in the world at 105 meters below ground level. As fighting continues as part of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, some of the men sent to assassinate Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, an elite unit of Chechen soldiers, have themselves been eliminated, according to Ukraine's Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, cited by Ukrainian news outlet The New Voice of Ukraine. Speaking to Ukraine's Rada TV channel, Oleksiy Danilov said the Chechens had split into two groups, with one handled near Hostomel, a town near Kyiv, and the other in our sites. Seemingly corroborating part of the statement, the Kyiv Independent reported that Ukrainian forces had successfully destroyed a Chechen Special Forces column of tanks near Hostomel on Saturday, February 26th. In a separate development, the Times of London reported last week that more than 400 Russian mercenaries are operating in Kyiv with orders to assassinate President Zelensky. The Wagner Group, a private Russian militia, flew in mercenaries from Africa 5 weeks ago on a mission to decapitate Zelensky's government. The U.S. Justice Department is launching a special unit to enforce sanctions against Russian government officials and oligarchs, targeting their yachts and other assets. The U.S. has already joined the European Union and other allies in targeting Russian elites and their family members with sanctions including freezing assets. Now, as Rolling Stone reports, Alisher Yuzmanov's yacht was seized by German authorities Wednesday. It is launching its klepto-capture task force to enforce its sanctions. Anger against those seen as playing a part in the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been widespread even outside of state actors, with a Ukrainian sailor arrested Saturday in Spain after admitting to trying to sink a yacht owned by the head of a Russian state arms firm, stating it was retaliation for the invasion. Responding to the change in mood, at least 5 super yachts owned by Russian billionaires were in the Maldives on Wednesday, which does not have an extradition treaty with the U.S., according to Reuters. The basis for the state-based economic sanctions aimed at oligarchs and their families is, according to CNN, that they can unsettle a very personal element of the Russian economy, in which Vladimir Putin's so-called inner circle and the family members tied to them represent an extraordinary consolidation of wealth and power inside the country. As Russia's invasion of Ukraine enters its second week, the Washington Post explains that many of Russia's billionaires have served high up in Putin's government or been instrumental in providing financing either for the Russian president personally or his government's efforts abroad, according to EU officials.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the Tomo News family. Thanks for watching.